In Pokémon Scarlet and Pokémon Violet, you are faced with many mysteries, and most of them are never explained. I have speculated a lot about them and have thrown a lot of theories out of the window. One of those was the existence of some kind of time loop. But I had to go and pick up that one back up because one comment on the previous video told me about how those weird circles in the grass look a lot like arrows going around and around. So hey, I'm not so a strainer, and what about a time loop? Let's get into it. A time loop, as per Wikipedia, is a plot device in fiction whereby characters re-experience a span of time which is repeated, sometimes more than once, with some hope of breaking out of the cycle of repetition. Now, we're probably asking yourselves, what events are being repeated here? Well, it all starts with some kind of organization. 2000 years ago was the Paldean Empire, 200 years ago was the Uva/Naranja Academy, and 140 years ago it seems to have been the same thing, and now, on the current day, it seems to be the Pokémon League. Then, that organization invests in/sponsors expeditions to Area Zero. The Paldean Emperor, the Academy, and probably the Pokémon League all sponsor or dump some cash in those same expeditions. They are all looking for something. It can be treasure, knowledge, or even power. And this is where the time loop theory becomes a bit tougher to find arguments for. Not every expedition found something. We know the Empire always came home empty-handed, and that's what ultimately caused their downfall, and we also have no information about the Academy itself falling into any kind of debt back in the day. This means that if the events are repeating, they are somehow changed from repetition to repetition. It also means that, unlike a traditional time loop, we would simply have repeating events in every new generation. Not the same events are happening to the same people, but it could be that what's happening is that you lose what you're going for. A bit like history repeating itself. Raifort would absolutely love that. So the symbols in the cave, the circles with arrows going around and around, could simply be a warning from someone in the past that finally understood what was going on. It tells others that might get there that if they are caught in that place, they will live through everything again and again, eventually falling into ruin. The plate itself might be the same, an hourglass meaning that it feels time is repeating itself, and the circles mean other times it has happened. That is a more far-fetched one, so imagine I'm sinking the tinfoil hat in my head right now. So what I believe happens inside Area Zero is that the third legendary, the Disc Pokémon, feeds your mind and keeps you in a loop until you fall into ruin. The Paldean Emperor was broke, Heath was discredited, and Sada and Turo supposedly died. The Pokémon League could be next in line. If Geeta goes there in search of power in the form of the imagined Pokémon, she might be the next one to lose it all. Whatever is happening in Area Zero is using us, toying with us, and then leaving us with nothing. Of course, all this talk about ruin makes you think about the treasures of ruin, the Pokémon that we have very responsibly freed from the prisons. But in this theory, I can't quite place them in that cave. But what I can tell you is something that makes all of this make sense regarding the Iberian Peninsula and the connection to Paldea. The games have a huge theme around food and constellations. You have things like Fidel's line, Scovillain, the whole concept of Dondozo and Tatsugiri, and of course all the sandwiches we've made, and then you have Cassiopeia being the whole theme around Team Star, the 3-dog constellations giving us 3-dog Pokemon, the Cancer constellation justifying Cloth being there, and many more. I never really got back to the topic, but there are a lot of old videos of mine touching the subject. That's to say that food and stars could also explain this. So what's one thing that is almost certain about the third legendary? It is gonna be a dragon. They all are, that's the way they do things. There is a Draco constellation, and when Ryan M on Twitter mentioned Ouroboros, I thought to myself, if I have learned anything from Lockstin is that they do like their alchemy, so any reference to Ouroboros would not be crazy. Ouroboros is an ancient symbol depicting a serpent or dragon eating its own tail. It is often looked at as a symbol for eternal cyclic renewal or a cycle of life, death and rebirth. Basically, a loop. While the Draco constellation isn't biting its own tail, it could simply be a reference to having a powerful dragon in the games, or simply a reference to Dondozo and Tatsugiri, who knows. But if the third legendary is based around Ouroboros, it can be a reference to not a constellation, but everything we see in the skies. A reference to the Milky Way itself. But the really important part is, of course, food. And in Portugal and Spain we have a dish called, in Portuguese, pescadinha de rabo na boca, or in Spanish, pescadilla de rosca. It's basically a fried European hake that is fried with its tail in its mouth. The dish also names proverbial expressions in both countries, or the other way around, I couldn't really tell you. In Portuguese, uma pescadinha de rabo na boca, meaning tail in mouth, little hake, and in Spanish, a pescadilla que se muerde la cola. meaning the hate that bites its tail. And both of them refer to vicious circles like the one that is happening in Area 0. And for those that look at those hexagons and want a connection to Kalos and Zygarde, the Ouroboros has many iterations throughout history, with one of them being the Jormungandr in Norse mythology, the same mythology that served as inspiration for the Aura trio, with 50% Zygarde actually having been connected to Jormungandr as well before. All in all, I believe that Area 0 will have some kind of snake dragon legendary. A legendary that puts people into some kind of ruinous loop when they go down there by either teasing them with nothing or feeding into their obsession. And maybe feeding on their obsession as well. And who knows if all we did was finish Sada and Turo's loop only to start a new one that we are now a part of. And that is all I have for you today, just a simple theory about how a Portuguese and Spanish dish might actually explain Area 0. But what about you? Do you have any more theories about that place? Let me know in the comments down below. And now, like the video if you like it, dislike if you don't, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon content and also ring the bell so you know when the next video is out. You can follow me on social media and Twitch, I stream there Wednesday to Sunday, not Saturday, or join our Discord, all the links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.